Hello and welcome to my channel, and if this is your first time here, my name is Millie, and in today's video I'll be talking about things I wish I knew when I started makeup. So I'm talking kind of about like 5 years ago is really when I started getting into makeup. I did, play around with some makeup in high school and college for sure, but it wasn't really until like the end of college that I really started to get into makeup. I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, I got an Instagram, and I started posting on Instagram. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of reflect on the time and just kind of bring myself back. And I was looking at some older pictures and I was like, I really wish I knew some of these things before, especially because the beauty community was a bit different in the style of makeup that was really trending at the time versus what is trending now. Back then it was very much full coverage, full contour, full color correction, and it's still definitely around now, but it's changed quite a bit. It's shifting more now towards kind of glowy makeup, more natural looks, obviously depending on the person, but just in general, I think when you see the products that are being released and you're looking at videos, not just YouTube but Instagram, I think it's shifted quite a bit. And I feel like personally at the time when I was watching some of these YouTube videos and some of these Instagram like makeup application videos, and it just felt like that was the way to do makeup at the time. So there's just a couple of notes that I wrote down that I wanted to cover of things I wish I knew when I started makeup. So the first one is also probably the most important one, and that is skin prep. Nobody back then that I could see or remember ever talked about prepping your skin or just skincare in general. I think skincare has blown up over the last couple of years so much more, but I just wish I knew back then how important it was to put down a moisturizer, maybe a primer, put on sunscreen, etc. I just didn't know any better back then. Nobody was doing those extra steps. No one was really talking about, putting on serums, doing like a skincare routine in the morning and in the evening. Obviously I'm 5 years older, so I'm sure my skin has changed a little bit, but back then I had a lot of trouble with finding foundation that would look right on my skin, and I really think it was just because my skin wasn't good to begin with. I didn't know what I needed to give to it in order for it to be healthy and supple, and I found that the moment I started doing skincare and putting moisturizer on before foundation, letting that sink in, using sunscreen, all of that stuff, I find that since then most foundations have been working for me now. And I find that the moment I start slacking on my skincare, or my skin is just angry with me because it's winter and it's super dry, then obviously the foundation's not going to look great. So that's something that's been a huge learning experience for me on my 5-year makeup journey. And going off of that, the next point is that I don't need full coverage for matte and for oily skin. There was definitely a lot of like, you have to use mattifying primers, you have to use scrubs and use very stripping products that really just strip your face of oils, and instead you end up with a dehydrated oily skin that's overproducing oil because you have dehydrated. But that wasn't really talked about. It was all very much about just basically a perfect canvas of foundation, and it seemed like everyone was on a mission to prevent any kind of oil from seeping through that, which is just not possible. There's nothing that's going to shrink your pores, there's nothing that's going to block your pores. So since then I have embraced that I have an oily T-zone. It's going to get oily and that's fine, and I actually much prefer more dewy kind of foundations, even though I will be even more oily looking than somebody who uses a dewy foundation and they have dry skin. I just realized that matte foundation it does the opposite of what you want it to do, and it might end up looking too heavy, too cakey, and the oil is going to go through it anyways. So kind of what is the point? And I just much rather look healthy and glowy. That being said, I still have some more full coverage foundations that are a little bit more on the kind of matte side, but I use them with caution. I pretty much only reach for those when I really feel like I need the coverage. For the most part, if I'm doing anything where I'm going to be in public or around a lot of people and I need my foundation to last, but I only really reach for those when I feel like I really have a lot to cover up on my skin, and also because I'm kind of just trying to get through those bottles. Next one is a huge one, and that is that bronzer and contour are different and you can use them interchangeably. Like about a month ago I watched Alex Anele's, I'll link her channel down below, video on bronzing versus contouring, and I felt like back 5 years ago, I wasn't really sure what the difference was and where the placement difference was, and it seemed like everyone was kind of contouring with bronzer and vice versa, and it had me really confused, and I just wish I had known back then which is which. And so the next thing I wish I knew was just cream products are amazing. Even though you have oily skin, cream products look so much more natural to me, at least. I don't really like to set my face too much, but mostly I just like to set my perimeter because I hate when my hair sticks to the sides of my face. But other than that, I really don't like to set. I don't set my nose because it just ends up making it dry and it ends up making it cakey, and then my foundation will start coming off and it's just a whole mess. So I've been just really into cream products like blushes, cream contours, cream bronzers, all that kind of stuff, especially the blushes though. I am so obsessed with cream blushes, and I never thought I would ever say this because I was never a blush person, and then I started getting into powder blushes, but I just so much more prefer an application of a cream blush. I just really look forward to it, and when I do decide to use a matte blush, I just feel like I'm risking it looking patchy because of the setting. I don't know, I just have such a better time with cream products. The next one is about primers and using the wrong primers with foundations. So using a water-based primer with an oil-based foundation and vice versa, things are just not going to jive. Maybe it works for some people, but I was just buying primers on a whim, kind of trying it with foundation, and it would end up separating, and I still sometimes have that issue, which is why I don't really go for primers. But in general, I just wish I had more knowledge of primers and which ones kind of do what, and are they actually going to be beneficial or detrimental to my skin. And honestly, now I'm still not convinced that they even do anything. I pretty much only use them sometimes just to use them up because I just feel like I don't need to use a primer. There's no primer I have used, and I have used quite a bit in the last 5 years, that ever did anything. So maybe that will change in another couple more years. That might be interesting to look back at this video in a couple years and see how we feel about primers. I'm filming with natural lighting, so sorry the lighting's in and out because the clouds are covering the sun and they're not covering the sun and they're just moving and doing their cloud thing. But the next point is I'm actually going to merge two together, spot concealing and using smaller amounts of concealer under the eyes. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you remember those times with the triangles under the eyes and just putting concealer like almost everywhere basically. It also depends on the types of under eyes you have, and I have kind of bags under my eyes and I have some lines here, and it just, a lot of concealer just does not work for me. It will obviously crease if I'm putting it into lines. There's nothing I can do, and then having to set all that product just might make it more likely to crease later. So it just doesn't work for me personally. I would much rather use less product because if you're thinking about it, it's kind of like putting a layer on. You're putting texture on, and the more layers, the more textures, the more textured your skin is going to look. And I feel like spot concealing has just really changed my life, and I'm pretty sure it was Samantha Ravindal that I first saw doing it. I know she was definitely not the first one to do it, but I was just watching her heavily at the time. I just love her channel so much, and I remember her doing it and I was like, oh my god, I have to try this. And honestly, like, life changed. I will always spot conceal, and also like the amount of product I use is very, very small. I'm still on the fence whether or not it's better to spot conceal under foundation or over foundation. I really think it just depends. I've kind of haven't really seen a difference much, but that is still something I'm seeing. But spot concealing and using less concealer under the eyes made a huge difference in my makeup game. Next one is using smaller eye brushes. I feel like 5 years ago I had no idea really what the difference in application would be between different sizes of blending brushes or just lid brushes or really anything, especially blending brushes really. And I just thought that really any blending brush would do. But then I bought the Goss eye brush set and I realized how important it was to have really small blending brushes, and the brush, I think it's 19 and 20 are like the smallest ones, and they were just absolutely life-changing for me. And since then I've realized like how much more I prefer smaller brushes for my small hooded eyes. And that's not really something I saw from videos or anything like that. It was more like a personal discovery, and so I wish that back then I knew that not every blending brush is a great blending brush. Next one is also kind of like a personal discovery and just really a result of doing my makeup a lot, and that was about cutting the crease and cutting higher above the crease. I feel like I saw it in photos, and I'm sure I watched tutorials and YouTube videos of people doing a cut crease, even though I feel like it wasn't that common at the time when I just started out. I'm sure that they mentioned to cut higher than the crease, but something just didn't click. And the moment I opened my lid, it just got swallowed. But also when I looked down, you could tell that my lid almost looked too small because I didn't cut it right. So that's something I wish I knew, which is again one of those things that just come with time. And that brings me to the last part of what I wish I knew when I started makeup, and that was that it just takes time and practice and frustration and a lot of just using different makeup brushes, using different techniques, really getting to know your eyelids, getting to know your facial structure, if it's for blush placement and contouring or bronzing. When it comes to makeup, just like any kind of art or artistry, practice makes perfect. I know that's a very common expression, but it is so very much true. I could just feel myself and my hands feeling like they know what they're doing better as time went on, and just putting on makeup pretty much every day, just not just eyeshadow, but also my face makeup. So whether you are a seasoned makeup wearer, you're just beginning, or you're right in the middle of your makeup journey, just remember that time and practice will make all the difference. And so that's everything for this video. Let me know in the comments below what kind of things you wish you knew when you started makeup, what kind of things you are still figuring out. And of course, these are all my personal thoughts on my own personal growth when it comes to makeup, and just, you know, time and practice, basically just finding things out, and also the change of the makeup industry throughout the last 5 years and the change in trends. So I'm not saying that there is any wrong or right, it's really just about having fun with makeup, and everybody's different from skin tone to skin type to eye shape, face shape, what have you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.